Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a bit of a break. I didn't really let you guys know. That one is on me. I just kind of took a bit of a break over the holidays, spent some time with family, spent some time with some other people. Just kind of take a break from everything, and now I'm back into it. Excited to get into making some more videos on the channel. And a crap ton of NBA content, man, because let me tell you, I have not covered a lot since I've been gone, and of course we know there's going to be more to cover when I get back. But as per the title of the video, today I want to talk about my favorite team in the NBA, the Toronto Raptors, and more specifically, for a little bit of it at least, some of the criticism that Pascal Siakam has gotten early in the season. And I understand why he got it early in the season. He wasn't playing very well. In the month of January, he had 18.7 points per game, on only 4.7 assists, which isn't a bad number, but a number that should be better for him. But more importantly, he was shooting less than 40% from the field, was making some poor decisions, and just didn't look good. Nearly had an average of 4 turnovers a game. He just didn't look good. He didn't play good. His defensive effort wasn't there as you would expect it to be, because he's someone that should be above average to really good on the defensive end, and that effort wasn't there. His offensive aggression and decision making was very poor, and there were some legitimate concerns from some people that Siakam had just lost it a little bit, that we weren't going to see the same Siakam that we had seen early in last season, at the start of the season, when he was someone who was not necessarily a favorite, of course, but nonetheless still a potential MVP candidate. And it just kind of fell off, and obviously his play wasn't as good in the bubble after not being able to touch a basketball and shoot at a rim for about 2 to 3 months due to lockdowns. But for anyone who's been, as of today, January 13th, if there's still anyone who's hating on Siakam, you gotta tone it down a little bit. I can understand some criticism, sure. He's now missed 2 potential game-winning shots in a row, and that needs to be improved, sure. But in saying that, he's been very good in every other facet of the game, and I think the criticism needs to go on the Raptors and some coaching and play calling decisions more so than anything else. Because if you look at the Toronto Raptors this season, they are a 2-8 team. They are last in the league. They're last in the league, tied with the Detroit Pistons, and this is a team that most people would have expected to be anywhere from as high as a 3, but not probably that high, to anywhere really from a 3 to 7 seed range, essentially. More so probably a 4 to 7. But a team that was going to be good, it was going to be competent, and it was still a very good NBA team. But there's been a couple of issues for this team. Firstly was the poor start to Siakam. But now he's back on track, so we can't blame that for recent losses, even though they've now lost essentially 5 of their last 6, I believe, although I might be missing a game in there. But nonetheless, their last 2 against Golden State and Portland in 1-point games, in which they were not able to get the last point off of Pascal Siakam bucket. But outside of that, we've also now had a scenario in which obviously Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol left in the offseason, and the hopes were that Aaron Baines and Alex Len would be the center platoon. I wasn't sure initially if Chris Boucher was going to play the 5, Chris Boucher was going to play the 4, but nonetheless it looks like Aaron Baines was going to be the starting center. And obviously he's not Serge Ibaka, obviously he's not Marc Gasol, but especially considering his play early on last season with Phoenix when DeAndre Ayton was suspended, it appeared as though Aaron Baines would be a feasible starting center option, someone who could get you some good rebounds, play some decent defense for you, and get a bit of offensive production out of it. But he has been absolutely terrible to start the season. He's been missing open layups, he can't buy buckets, his rebounding and defense has been very poor, and so he's completely played his way out of the rotation. He doesn't even see the court anymore. Alex Len has featured a little bit. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he started that game against Portland on Monday night. I think he played 8 minutes, 10 minutes. He just didn't look good. I don't think he had a rebound a single game. He made some stupid decisions late in the second quarter when he did come in for a little bit after his stint in the first quarter. And I don't think he saw the court again after that. I think for the rest of the game, it was a small ball scenario with Siakam at the 5 and OG at the 4, or Chris Boucher obviously coming in off the bench. And I think, if I remember correctly, I believe Chris Boucher did start the second half of that game, and we transitioned to being small for a bit when Boucher was off the court, because Alex Len and Aaron Baines did not see the court for the rest of that game. So obviously that center production has been a big part of this team, struggling to win. And it remains to be seen whether Chris Boucher starts to get inserted into that lineup. So then you have a starting lineup of Van Fleet, Lowry, OG, Siakam, and Chris Boucher. And then you have Norm off the bench. Stanley Johnson has been really good for this team this year. Obviously still not great offensively, but he does provide a little bit on offense. And his defense on the wing has been elite. So he's been a big piece of this team. Norm's still doing his thing off the bench. And then Malachi Flynn, the rookie's been getting a few minutes. Terrence Davis has looked good the last few games, although his defense on some closeouts I haven't loved. But his energy and his length and his on-ball defense has been quite good, as well as some good shot making. So the question is then, I guess, whether you want Chris Boucher's offensive production in the starting lineup because the center position has been so bad, or do you go small and hope that you can get away with it? So maybe it becomes a scenario where you start small against some teams depending on matchups, and you start Boucher in others. The only argument, I suppose, for Boucher not to start, because Boucher has been so good. I believe in his last 5 games, he's averaging something nuts, like 18, 19 points a game and 4 blocks or something like that. It's some nut stats for someone that's just burst onto the scene this year. Obviously, he did play some meaningful minutes last year, but nothing crazy. And now, after getting his new contract this offseason and having an expanded role with Ibaka and Gasol leaving, he is showing to be very valuable with his rim protection on the defensive end and his ability to score the ball at an elite level on the offensive end for the center position. It's a really good shot, really good in the pick and roll, although not great. He's proven to be very valuable. And so, as I mentioned, the only argument to him not starting is, do you want to leave that pop and take that offensive pop off of the bench? But with that being said, I suppose, regardless of what happens, if you go small, Norman Powell probably starts, and if you want a traditional center, Chris Boucher probably starts. So regardless, with Aaron Baines and Alex Len not being capable starting centers, we're going to lose Pop off of the bench, because our 2 best offensive players off the bench are Norman Powell and Chris Boucher. There's no question about that. And I say me or we, I forget my wording of it, just because I'm a Raptors fan. It's my team. It's just how I refer to it. But nonetheless, this team is going to lose Pop off of the bench because of their inability to have Aaron Baines or Alex Len start at the center position, unless they start starting like a Malachi Flynn, but then you have 3 point guards, so that's not going to happen. Maybe they start Stanley Johnson for defense, but then you have Johnson and Anunoby starting. Obviously, Anunoby offers a bit more on offense, but it's 2 extreme shutdown defensive guys on the wing that aren't great off the dribble or creating their own shot. And so I think they'd rather have Norm in that lineup as opposed to Stanley Johnson. So I think it is quite likely that you might not see it come Thursday night against Charlotte, but I wouldn't be surprised to see soon a fairly consistent starting lineup of Lowry, Van Fleet, OG, Siakam, and Chris Boucher. That allows Norm Powell to still come off the bench. That allows Terrence Davis to still come off the bench. That allows Malachi Flynn to still come off the bench. Stanley Johnson to come off the bench. Matt Thomas hasn't really seen any minutes. His defense just hasn't been up to scratch. But those are probably the 4 guys you would probably consistently see off the bench. Maybe a little bit of Alex Len or Aaron Baines eventually to see if you can just get them going in a certain matchup, but that remains to be seen. Hopefully we can get them going, but it's just not looking good. But that's the first issue. It's been the underproduction of those centers, and that's how I expect that'll go long term. And then obviously when Boucher goes off the court in that scenario, Siakam will have to stay on because we'll have to play small with Siakam at the 5. Similar to how Lowry and Van Fleet, one of them is always on the court, so we have a traditional point guard, and it's not just Malachi Flynn who's carrying the load by himself. Those guys kind of rest at alternative times. I would assume in a scenario where Boucher starts, Siakam and Boucher will do a similar thing, so we always either have a traditional center in Boucher, or then Siakam as a small 5 in small ball lineup, and that'll obviously depend on matchups, and if a team has two big centers, they're probably going to struggle on that night, or Alex Len or Aaron Baines might just have to play, or if a team has a backup center who's not as big, or they play a bit of a small ball bench, then that'll be the time when Boucher will have to get his rest. But it's going to make for some interesting matchups and lineups for this team. Not necessarily in a good way, but interesting nonetheless. But moving right along. Probably the most important thing about this team this year. They haven't been bad until the fourth quarter. The Raptors, in 6 of their 8 losses, have had 10-point leads and blown them all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's been over like the last 3 or 4 seasons. I don't think the Raptors have blown that many games where they've had a 10-plus lead. I could be slightly wrong on that, but the number of losses would be fairly similar. And has this been simply due to the ability to not make shots and ability to not close games late in the game? And part of it is shot making, and part of it is play call. In that game against Portland the other night, there was about a 3-minute stretch, 4-minute stretch for the Raptors that didn't get a bucket from about the 5-minute mark to the 2-minute mark, or whatever it was, somewhere around there. And it was stagnant. It was the guys were tired on a back-to-back, and play calling wasn't there to be able to get some rims to the basket, draw some fouls, get some layups. It was just shoot a three, shoot a mid-range, shoot a three. And there was just no ball, not enough ball and player movement to get decent shots. And Portland were just able to go on a run. I think it was a 12-0 run, whatever it was. It was a meaty run, to say the least. And so, and that just did it for him, right? And it was one of those things where he lost by 1 point to Golden State, he lost by 1 point to Portland. That road trip could have been a lot different. He had a big lead against the Suns as well. And you look at Siakam's stat line over this trip. Siakam had 32 points against the Suns on 52.4% shooting, as well as 9 rebounds and 3 assists. Against Sacramento, he had 9 rebounds and 12 assists and 17 points. He was 1 rebound away from a triple-double while shooting 63.6% from the field. Against Golden State, he had 25, 11 boards, and 3 assists while shooting 47%. And against Portland, he had 22 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists, his first career triple-double, which, given his increased playmaking I've seen already this season, I think we're going to see a lot more of those. And he also shot 53% in that game, while only having an average of 2 turnovers a game in those 4 games, which is really nice for someone that's got as much usage as him and gets his double teamed as much as him. So I think this triple-double stat line is something we could really see a lot more from Siakam this year. That was one thing that I really wanted to see improve from Siakam this season. Obviously, you just needed to first get him back in form and playing like he was. But then the next thing was, if he could start to pass at a much higher and near elite level, with as much as he gets double teamed, as much as he drives to the rim and draws help, if he can start to become a really good passer, kind of like Giannis has over the last few seasons, it's going to be scary. Because Siakam is very good at getting to the rim, getting into that post area, and driving to the basket. So he's very good at drawing help. He commands a lot of double teams in some games. So if he can start improving his passing game, so he can get a lot of open looks for some people, then he's going to be another level of a beast this season if he can continue to play at this level. I mean, on that road trip, he averaged about 24.5 points per game, throwing in 12, 10, like 6.5 assists and over 10 rebounds a game. And if he can keep those numbers up, those are some very good numbers, and with very good impact and much better impact on the defensive end and limited turnovers on high efficiency. That's what you want. That's what you want. The 3-point shooting hasn't quite been there as of late, but all I'm going to say is this to finish this off. Anyone that still is hating on Pascal Siakam needs to stop. If you want to criticize him for not being able to make shots in the clutch, fair. I criticize him for that right now too. I feel like the shot against Golden State, he probably could have done better to get a better look. And against Portland, he probably should have made that shot inside. But that being said, the team should have never been in those scenarios. The coaching and play calling needs to be better, which is something we haven't had to say about Nick Nurse too much yet, but I think we need to criticize him here. This needs to pick up so that we can have some better flow on offense later in the fourth quarter. And we got to figure out a lineup and figure out what we want to do with our center position. And it essentially comes down to that. But we shouldn't be clowning Siakam, and regardless of how bad he's playing, the people that have been telling him to go back to his home and all this crap, that we gotta stop doing this to people in the public eye, man. We gotta stop doing it to anyone. We shouldn't start doing that crap, man. I don't care if Siakam was getting 2 points a game and couldn't hit a bucket. You don't do that crap, man. He criticizes basketball, but you don't need to start criticizing his life for him being bad at basketball and telling him to go do terrible things. Like, we don't need that. We need positivity. That's what we're trying to get here on this community. Just want to talk about basketball, share opinions, and be able to discuss it. If we disagree, it's all good, but I love hearing your thoughts, and I hope you guys can enjoy hearing mine at least enough to watch a bit of the video. So, that being said, I thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys did enjoy. Feel free to leave your thoughts down below. I do, as I mentioned, enjoy having discussions with you guys on these topics. But I do thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one, hopefully after the Raptors win.